Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mind Your Magic. Now, minding your magic, what does that mean? And of course, we talk a lot about mindset and about raising your vibration, but doing that can be quite hard when you're just not feeling yourself. And you might have tried every yo-yo diet there is and consistently trying to adjust your lifestyle, but you're so confused about what to do and what your next step is. And that's why today we're going to have a part three with Sharon from Embrace. And I just wanted to tap into Sharon and get a lot more information about how we can take the next step and go the next level when it comes to our energy levels and our weight loss. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Bianca. So good to meet with you again in
Yes,
your
I mean,
show.
yeah, we just don't have like there's so much to talk about. And I think if we just spoke for 10 hours, it just wouldn't land. So I think it's really cool that we can break these
Yeah.
up into small bites. So yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Um, I guess in terms of weight loss, right? I reckon that's probably the thing that maybe breeds the most shame and guilt when it comes to women and their lifestyle. And I know, I mean, for me personally, of course, and you've helped me so much already with the work that you do. But I was wanting to ask you, why do so many women struggle to lose weight, even when they're eating clean and they're exercising? And what role does metabolic dysfunction really have to do with all of that?
Yeah, it's quite broad, isn't it, in the approach when we look at when you actually explain it that way. And in functional medicine, we really need to look at a few parts of this because weight loss is weight loss. Obviously, you know, people think of it as calories in, calories out. I'll exercise, I'll burn it off, lose a couple of kilos on, you know, just on the scale, and not really think about the fact that it is really an encapsulation of other things, and metabolic dysfunction, which is probably maybe a buzzword too that we see a bit in social media as well, and people are not understanding that, you know, what is it all about and how is it related to weight loss? How is it related to myself? If I've, going to see my doctor and my doctor suddenly says, you're in metabolic dysfunction or metabolic syndrome or you're pre-diabetic. And that's what it comes down to. So weight loss is what I call in my work with clients in functional medicine, Bianca. It's just one of the good outcomes of the program with them. So, they will come to me for weight loss, obviously, straight up the bat when I ask them in their questionnaire, what are you coming to Embrace for? And they'll answer, I want to lose some weight. I want to drop a few kilos. I want to, reduce my waist measurement, build muscle, whatever it is. I will say to them, okay, I see that you've come to me for this weight loss. This is going to be one of the outcomes of the program for you. And they will just give me a bit of a blank look and think, I know that they're thinking, I just want to lose weight. What else is what else is going to sort of happen here? And that's where we look at all the other parts of it. So to go back to what metabolic dysfunction is, in conventional medicine, we go and get our blood tests done and we get our HbA1c, which is our glycosylation of blood sugars over 3 months, Bianca. You might get a random blood glucose test, an insulin resistance test, which is a projection of future diabetes. You'll get your cholesterols done. You might get your homocysteine levels done. So that's your inflammatory markers, your other inflammatory markers like, your CRP, all of these inflammatory metabolic um, targets specifically. When you go to your doctor and they're high, and you go in and have your waist measurement done, and that is over in Australia what we have as a risk for diabetes. So each waist measurement is a risk for diabetes. And as it goes on, it goes into the morbid obesity. It basically tells us where we are with our health. So metabolic dysfunction is that your cholesterol levels are dangerously high. You have very high blood sugar levels. You have a high HbA1c, which is the medium of what your blood sugars are over the 3 months. You have a high waist measurement, and some inflammatory markers are there as well. When we're in metabolic syndrome, we're actually at risk for other diseases later on. So, your type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, dementia, type 3 diabetes, which that is, other inflammatory disorders, kidney problems, just issues with the lower extremities, like, cardiac issues in general, you name it. So when we're predisposed, because we're being told we have metabolic issues, metabolic syndrome, metabolic dysfunction, that puts us in that higher risk category. So when I see clients and they're there, not only do they need to lose weight, and that's going to be one of the things they do, they also need to take heed of what other things they need to do to ensure that they're sort of getting their markers back on track. So we give that a couple of months and work on some things together with them. But the weight loss part of all this is really important, because what I do is I really concentrate on waist measurement as a measure. So when people I'm working with, say on the diabetes program or the life program or just one-on-one, they'll check their weight on the scale, when I will look specifically at their waist measurement as a marker here, because that's going to tell me a lot about their inflammation. That's going to tell me a lot about whether their blood sugar is balanced. It's going to tell me a lot about their metabolic flexibility. So it's a really important area to look at, especially for myself as a functional medicine practitioner in this area, but also for us to gauge how well they're going in the program overall, their success in the program overall. So that waist measurement is going to give us an understanding of the metabolic markers. Has metabolic syndrome improved? And metabolic syndrome can lead to so many different things.
Because I never heard of metabolic dysfunction, at least not through my doctor, because I find that the doctor has their set parameters, and it's not until it gets into that danger zone is when they start to fix like the symptoms. But I don't want to wait that long. If I'm feeling that, okay, things are starting to slide, I want to fix it now, like the root cause. And it wasn't until I started looking at the different, how my body works differently, like my liver, for example. For some reason, I was at the beginning of fatty liver, and I'm like, well, how is that? That's like the alcoholic sort of, like, I don't drink. I mean, I
Yeah.
do, but barely. And then my eczema would flare up, and I'm like, okay, that's from the liver. And I'm starting to understand how it all works, but we don't really look at the body as a whole thing, do we? We look at like it bit by bit by bit, like the weight loss thing, for example. I mean, I don't really know if I believe in the whole calories in, calories out. I mean, I do get it. It does make a lot of sense. And yes, you get results. But technically, if I was to be on a calorie deficit for the rest of my life, I'd die, because if on that basis, do you know what I mean? So it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me. But you can do calories in, calories out. But if your liver isn't functioning properly, or if I don't even know, you're pre-diabetic or whatever, it's still not going to work. Or it might work and you might be thin, but your body's still breaking down. Like, do you know what I mean? It's such an insight into
Absolutely.
what's
Yeah.
happening in the body.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is the thing, when people come in to see me and say they want to lose weight, and that's the first thing they want to do, I kind of invite them to look at aspects of their health that they haven't considered, like what is in their blood test result, for example. And you nailed a really good one: fatty liver, or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is common in people in Australia. We know that fatty liver can lead to other cardiovascular issues. It can amplify metabolic syndrome. It can also predispose you to, well, a lot of gut issues. So because there's so many connections there, the body is one. We have axes that run right through the body.
Mm.
When metabolic syndrome or dysfunction is there, you've got your blood sugar imbalance issue that's leading to your heart, your brain, your gut, your liver, you know, your gynecological organs.
Yeah.
Um, it's signaling to the immune response, it's signaling to the periphery of the body, it's signaling to other organs as well. So everything is communicating. When the body is in this inflammatory state and in metabolic syndrome, what we're talking about, we're in this specific state where it's not just that we need to look at the calories of food, because you're right there. Um, it isn't all about calories in, calories out. I mean, that's a very, I would say, an 80s maybe viewpoint of what dieting is all about. And that was probably in the 80s when the fat fad, was everything was reduced fat, no fat. Um, Dieting came in. I think, the carnivore diet, the keto diet, sort of by the 90s was quite popular, early to mid 90s, where we started to understand, okay, we need to have fats. But where does metabolic syndrome fit in all of this? It's not about your calories coming in and out. It's more about how are we going to reach an equilibrium in our body, maintain what you probably learned in high school, Bianca, which is homeostasis.
Yeah.
So it's just the body not being in its homeostatic positioning, because inflammation is pretty much out of control. And you're right, your doctor's probably not going to tell you you're in metabolic syndrome or dysfunction. They will maybe just say, oh, look, you're pre-diabetic, or you have really high cholesterol. We'll put you on statins. We'll put you on, think about Ozempic, or think about um, other drugs, instead of nibbing it in the bud, in terms of how the heck are we going to decrease this inflammation? Because that's what we need to do. We don't need to mask it. We need to be proactive about it.
Well, when I got my test done for you, he didn't say anything. And he's a great doctor, like really good. And he didn't say anything. He goes, "Oh, do you drink?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Oh, your liver's a little high." But that was it. That was nothing else. And then when you looked at my results, you're like, "You are really, really inflamed, Bianca." And I'm like, okay. And I know that from before with iron and with vitamin D, whenever they say that, or I can see the parameters, I'm like, it's nowhere near where I think, yeah, I mean, I'm no doctor, but I mean, those sort of ranges aren't really realistic. I think they're waiting for us to get sick so they can, push the drugs onto us. But the thing that really woke me up, which was really quite confronting for me, and I've actually gone down the rabbit hole of which was inflammation. So like, and now, I mean, maybe it's just me, I'm focusing on inflammation a lot, but we hear so much about inflammation, like particularly on podcasts and on the gram. And like what are the actual signs in our body that is saying that we're inflamed, and how does that affect our weight?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. So I better just explain first. So science is my background here. Inflammation is needed in the body, Bianca. So when we fall over and cut ourselves open, what happens is all of the cells come to the area of injury, and it's called phagocytosis. It's where all the cells come in and mop up all the cellular injury, and it produces an inflamed response or an inflammatory response. And this inflammatory response is great because it actually rouses up all the good cells and all the healing cells that are going to come in and make things better. So our body thrives on it. We need it for specific things. So we have what that in that case, that's an acute inflammation, right?
Right.
But what's happening with people here, and not just here, but in the Western world, I'll say, is that we are becoming chronic inflamed people. So chronic inflammation, as opposed to acute inflammation, which will go in a couple of weeks' time. So you'll heal that knee, and
Mhm.
that knee will heal up. But chronic inflammation is where we have an excess of um, cells that we shouldn't have that are endangering our body. So we're getting a lot of sort of cellular um, oxidation, we call it. So
Mhm.
oxidation of the cells, which is part of inflammation, is where you're keeping your bike out in the rain and it's getting rusty. That's exactly what's happening. Cells are rusting up. So we get sort of like a few things that are happening over time for this chronic inflammation to take place. Now, what's causing it? And I'll get onto how we know when we are. Poor lifestyle habits,
Mhm.
sedentary behavior, processed foods, chemicals, um, stress and anxiety, alcohol, cigarette smoking, drugs, medications, pollution in the air, pollution in our soils, you name it. A lot of things can create an inflammatory response.
Right.
Now, long term rusting or oxidation of these cells, so these cells are getting more rusty, more damaged, create a imbalance in the body and can also endanger specific organs. So specific organs start to become inflamed. We'll talk about the gut, for example. That's probably the most common. We start to see and feel things a little bit different. So an example of what you were asking of an inflamed body would be not absorbing food properly, having gut issues when you eat. Constipation is a big one. We are a constipated country.
Mm.
On average, we're only using the toilet 2 to 3 times a week.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's an example of an inflamed body.
And we're supposed to go what? How many times?
Every day, well, it should be every day, at least twice a day.
Twice. Okay.
And according to the Bristol stool chart, it should be a number 4 on the
Enough.
Bristol stool. Yeah,
Okay. Right.
it's just a marker of where we should be with our poo. But that's an example. Constipation, aching joints, a lot of the time as well. Fatigue after exercise. Some people find that they get really fatigued after exercise. So instead of energizing themselves, they'll feel fatigued. Um, Wound healing issues. It could be migraines and headaches are a big one as well. It's a big example of that. Um, Inability to lose weight, even though you've tried really, really hard with exercise, food,
It's so common.
everything. Yeah, that's probably the most common that I get. And in perimenopause and menopause, where inflammation is very much part of that, because 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes by the time they reach menopause.
Really? Oh my God.
And diabetes is an inflammatory condition,
Yeah.
which your doctor wouldn't tell you that.
No.
I'll be like, that's ridiculous. But it is, and it is more common because it's an umbrella, really. You've got inflammation, and under there, you've got your fatty liver, you've got your type 2 diabetes, you've got uh, your cardiovascular disease risk, you've got your autoimmune issues, hypothyroidism, hypothyroidism, both inflammatory conditions,
Wow.
so you got inflammation right there and everything around that, that sort of spectrum of, okay, inflammation is a predisposer to many of the chronic comorbidities that we're experiencing.
So is it fair to say, I mean, I'm still figuring this out, but so when you're inflamed, like, I mean, overinflamed, not like the acute that you said. So when we're in this state, we're not in homeostasis status. Is that right?
So
And would that then breed, like be breeding ground for like disease, like your cancers and all those sorts of things? Is that like, because I can only assume it's sort of like the perfect environment for it.
Absolutely, yeah. Because your the body isn't eliminating toxins as well as it should be when it's inflamed.
Right.
It's not creating cellular turnover. It's not, um, we have, I don't want to get too scientific, but there are cells that break down other cells. There's cells that get mopped up, like I was explaining when you hurt your knee. Those cells come in and break up and mop up all the debris when you fall over.
Yeah.
That's happening constantly in the body. I mean, cells are dying, we're making new ones, we're repairing ones that need to be repaired. Some need to be turfed out. Let's just get rid of some because they're old.
Well, that explains why you're also so tired as well when you're inflamed, because the body is just working overdrive.
Oh, yeah, and it is. And the liver is responsible for that toxic dump side of all of the cells that have been broken down in this inflammatory state. So inflammation is a state of chronic, chaos in the body, especially when it is um, in a mode where one area is hitting the next. You'll see it when I see it when I have clients, and they will give me their history and they will tell me all the things that happened on their journey. And, you know, they could have an autoimmune condition and they could have a cardiac condition, and the next year they hurt their back, and the next year they're in hospital for this, and then they had travel diarrhea, or then they had that. You look at their journey and you think that is just inflammation at its best.
Really?
And it is wreaking havoc in the body um, over time, because people are less resilient, they're fatigued, and their immune system isn't working as well. And the problem with a highly inflammatory body is that it can contradict what the immune system needs to do, because it isn't actually allowing the immune system to repair the body. It isn't allowing the immune system to keep cellular turnover or help us absorb the nutrients that we need from foods, the good fats, the proteins, the good quality carbohydrates. It doesn't enable your vitamin C sometimes. We need vitamin C. I mean, vitamin C is probably an important one to add to a repertoire of eating or foods if you're looking at reducing inflammation overall. But, if your gut's not working well, Bianca, it is really going to be difficult, to do that. And this is why you've really got to look at, um, if you work with a practitioner, ways that they can restore each organ, and look at every pillar in a functional medicine, healing mode.
So speaking of that, like what do you see are like the common sort of mistakes that are happening when women are embarking on this kind of a journey? I mean, it's particularly when they're doing it on their own and there's so much information out there. Like, what are some of the mistakes you see that are being made out there?
Commonly, look, making the inflammation worse, by, if they're wanting to lose weight, ending up spending a fortune on supplements and things that they don't need, that are not serving them anything, like in terms of, um, you know, looking at, I can't name the supplements, but
They're like
there's
synthetic types. Like,
yeah,
yeah, like particularly the cheaper types that aren't really active. Yeah.
yeah. So you cheap. I wanted to say, yeah, your cheap supplements that you can get from Coles,
Mm.
and they will be pill popping these, thinking that they're doing the right thing. Oh, I'm getting my vitamin B, I'm getting my C, I'm getting my D, but they're getting them from very poor forms.
Yeah.
Now, often they're full of fillers, and they're just packed with the capsules are packed with other synthetic products and chemicals. So they're not realizing that they're a poor dosage. The other problem is a lot of people are buying their supplements from Amazon as well. And Amazon's been known to sort of manipulate some of the actual capsules and some of the actual supplements. So just being mindful of that. That sort of emphasis puts the body in specific overdrive. So it doesn't enable the body to do the job in reducing inflammation. It just makes inflammation worse.
Oh my God, it makes it worse. Oh no.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the issue. Eating, obviously food and other diets that they will look at, so going on specific eating plans and meal plans and meal
Bad
replacement
diets. Yeah.
bad diet, and they will actually increase inflammation as well. And that's the other thing. They don't realize that they're not helping themselves, by doing that.
So what would you recommend then? So I'm guessing like me, when you first hear this and go down the rabbit hole, like where would one start if you wanted to make some small shifts that are really sustainable and manageable? Because I know everyone's really busy and like to just go buy organic or whatever could be really expensive. Like what would you recommend people start?
In reducing inflammation overall, which is going to be then helping them with losing weight. Look, if you can buy organic, Bianca, buy organic. It isn't always an option though, because it can be quite expensive. But we
Mm.
do know that the chemicals that are in your strawberries and your really sort of like high um, pesticide based foods, your dirty dozen
Yeah.
specifically. You got your dirty dozen and your clean 15. Um, if you can get the dirty dozen organic, great, all power to you.
So the
But
Dirty Dozen is like the 12 of those high
yes,
risk vegetables or
pesticide,
fruits that are, yeah, maybe they're soft skin, that kind of stuff where it penetrates, like
absolutely.
a blueberry versus maybe a banana. Like a banana has got a hard skin, I suppose, and it's harder to penetrate. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. Your Clean 15 is obviously, so it's been devised by the Environmental Working Group, and you can go on their website as well. You can have a
Cool.
look at what they are. And they're there as a marker for us to see exactly what has the most amount of pesticides in them, and how they can contribute to being an obesinogen. So they are foods that can contribute to weight issues. So being mindful of that obviously is a good thing. But we can't afford a punnet of strawberries at $18. If you're buying a punnet every other day because kids are
Oh,
taking
kids, my son will demolish one in a minute.
I know.
What are you
And that's
doing? And I don't get organic. So that's just normal ones with all the
yeah,
chemicals. Oh,
yeah. And I mean it's great if you can afford it, but not everyone can afford that,
yeah,
It's a great start. Once again, just being mindful. Don't listen to too many fad diets out there.
yeah.
I get so many people that come back and I listened to this podcast and they told me I should start eating this and that and doing this and doing that. And it's like, well, if it works for you, it's great. But if it's not contributing to, if it's not aligning with your weight or your inflammation or your pain, it's not reducing symptoms, then it's not doing a great job. So it's just a fad. And I think we just need to be careful of what we see on Instagram and what we see in social media in general, really.
I mean,
Uh,
even PTs mean well.
yeah,
Because I've done the PT course and it's a joke to get your PT. And I know, like we all know some very, very successful, like very rich PTs, entrepreneurs, and they've done amazing. And they get great results. Like I truly, and hats off to them. And they do get, but that's on someone who has a normal functioning body. Most of us don't have that, especially at our age because of hormones and things. So we get this advice from personal trainers who are so well meaning and might work for maybe the under 30s or the 20-year-old market. But yeah, the nutrition part of your personal training diploma, whatever it was called, is very basic. It's so basic.
there's That's crazy. So last night I had a client, she's 47, and she told me that her personal trainer actually yelled at her last week because she actually put on weight.
Oh, that's terrible.
And
And putting on weight in a PT is muscle. Muscle weighs more than fat. I mean, and plus there's hormones. And did she drink a lot of water? Has she had a lot of salt, which is holding the water? And especially you being a woman, like it's just that's terrible. And the
symptoms
stress as well would gain weight. Like, hello.
she goes, well, I won't be ever going back to a PT again. I said, don't let that take
No,
you.
yeah, that's not fair.
Great PTs. I know some great ones out there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like psychologists as well, the poor things. Like they really, it's not, it's about mindset as well. And what they go through is incredible if you
Yes,
find the right one for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, it's like that for everything. It's finding the right fit for you,
Yeah.
and that's if it makes you feel good, do it, and the same applies. That's going to reduce inflammation. Not stressing is going to reduce inflammation.
Yeah.
People are surprised when they say, well, take a look at a holiday, for example. You go on a holiday, you don't feel stressed out, you're
Mm.
relaxed, you're not depressed, you don't have a sore gut, you don't have these symptoms and that symptom. And um, your inflammation is suppressed.
Yeah.
Your body's working efficiently. It's how it's meant to be. It's in its homeostasis.
Yeah.
So um, it's looking at all of those things, getting out there in nature, I think
You,
would be one of the best
okay.
ones.
Yep.
I don't do enough of that myself, and I wish I could. I blame that probably living in a very busy urban area
Hmm.
where there's lots of pollution. Sometimes you just have to be, when I'm away, I know I get out early in the morning, you do your walk or whatever. It's less sort of like inviting when you're in a busier area. We know in places where, people live in the high-rise buildings and they have less green space, we know that anxiety and depression is much higher in those groups of people.
Mm.
And inflammation is obviously high as well because of that, that reason. So, really connecting with nature as much as possible. And I will say to clients, go out and book a weekend where you can get to the beach or you can get treeside, seaside, do something, go walking, go
Mm.
for a hike, smell some fresh air, which is soothing. It's grounding and it's great for the soul. That's going to reduce your inflammation.
Yeah, perfect. And what about sleep? I suppose being mindful of sleep. I
Oh,
mean, I
yes.
know we all can't, I mean, it'd be nice to go to bed by 9 and wake up at 6, but the reality is that's not how it works. But like for me, for example, I'm personally doing my best to get to bed by 9 because I'm up at 5 to get to bed
Yeah.
at 9:30. So because I just yeah, it's a big goal of mine to really rest the body so it can,
Oh,
you know,
that's a big one.
yeah.
Lack of sleep. Um, Look, we know in night shift workers or, women, say nurses who work night shift, they have a higher predisposition for breast cancer
Oh my gosh.
because they're not actually getting the night light, well, they're not actually sleeping and their circadian rhythm is off. When your circadian rhythm isn't right, it can predispose you to certain illnesses. Getting to bed at an earlier time and getting up at an earlier time, we know can reduce inflammation. It can reduce the stresses and the overall stress response on the body. Great for anxiety, great for obviously memory retention. High inflammation can also, interfere with memory retention, and that's a part of lack of sleep. One thing I think each person that comes and sits on my couch and I consult with in the functional medicine program are not sleeping well. They're women or men that are not sleeping well. They're waiting until 11 o'clock at night until everyone goes to bed. They're scrolling on their phone
Mm.
until 1 a.m. They might
Mm.
be binging on Netflix and, Prime or Amazon, whatever else you're streaming these days.
These phones, these smartphones, they're making us dumb,
Smartphone. And and the
guilty as
blue light
well.
Yes, I have been recently and I need to get back on track. But even the blue screen, like you have to be mindful. And I know I was working late last night on my computer and I forgot to put the blue screen on. And it wound me up. I was up. And I know as I was up all night, I'm like, Sharon, you were up late. You haven't been to bed early for a while. You've been scrolling, you've been
Mm.
on your computer. There's bright lights that are affecting REM sleep. You know, 11 o'clock at night, if you need to be in bed sleeping because that's where REM sleep will take place so that the body can do what it needs to do to repair the body overnight. You know, the liver and the heart and everything does a repair. It
Does
goes in.
our food affect our sleep as well, like what we're eating? So obviously having like a big bowl of ice cream, then going to bed, or having a coffee at, I don't know, 6 o'clock and then going to bed, even if it's at 10, will, I'm assuming that will affect it, or having a big slice of cake, or I don't know what, but, or greasy Chinese or fish and chips or something. I'm sure that will really affect sleep too, right?
Absolutely. Look, sugar in total, like, is a toxin, and it can create more inflammation. So that's probably the prime um, reason for inflammation overall. And when we're having something like that late at night, some ice cream, for example, what that's doing is it's raising cortisol levels as well. So the cortisol levels are going up and blood sugar levels are going up. If insulin resistance is already there, so the body isn't utilizing the sugar into the cells like it should be for energy, and you're trying to go to bed and sleep, what's happening is that the body is in focusing on trying to break down the sugars that you've created in the form of glucose from the food. And the brain is being redirected from sleep to try to break down. If you've had a really heavy meal or you've eaten way too close to bedtime, the body then is in an inflammatory state because, or an inflamed state because it's trying to break down, create digestion, the rest and digest state, rather than sleep. So the brain knows that the body's in a certain state. So it's not going to go to sleep. It's going to do other things. And that can really affect your rapid eye movement and a deep sleep that we should be getting.
And I
Um,
heard too, just through my son and his own, because he struggles because of his meds, um, with melatonin. And so you
mm,
produce your own, right? So
absolutely.
yeah, because I'm sure you can't produce that if your body's focusing on digesting
No,
like this glug, right?
melatonin is so funny and it's so fragile, if I can put it that way. If you miss the boat with melatonin, you've missed the boat. It
Really?
only peaks at a certain point at nighttime. If you get a second wind, so for example, you're watching Netflix and you're starting to doze, you're doing that dozing,
Yes.
and your melatonin is starting to say, yeah, it's dark, we have the ambience, it's nice and warm in here, you're cuddly, you're all sort of relaxed, you're enjoying, what you're doing on the couch, watching the movie. We'll have a bit of a doze, we'll go into a bit of a sleep. Your melatonin is peaking. If we miss the boat and in that stage you didn't hop into bed, then you're not going to catch the melatonin. You're not going to be able to have that melatonin to get you into a latent sleep. So you're going to have an issue with getting into a deep sleep. The same as when people take melatonin uh, and they say to me, oh, it doesn't work. One may be that they're taking too much, they're taking too high a dose.
Mm-hmm.
The other is, but they're not executing the sleep at the right time. So they're taking it and they're like, oh, let's just watch another episode. You know
Mm,
how Netflix, it just doesn't give you much
yeah,
time.
yeah. Yeah,
And you've got like a
dangerous.
few seconds. Should I? Shouldn't I? Do I need to go to bed? Right? And you kind of like, oh, stuff it. I know. I want to see what happens. Do they, what
Yeah.
happens in the next
One
episode?
more.
Yeah. And that interferes with the melatonin. And then you go to bed and you're like, oh my God, I was so dozy earlier.
Yeah.
I had a second wind when I watched the
Yeah.
next episode and I took my melatonin or whatever. So that doesn't help. It's something that you've got to say. You're taking melatonin, you just need to get to bed. The same with the bedtime. You need to get to bed at the right time to catch the Z's, because otherwise, if you miss the boat and get second wind, which happens a lot in perimenopause and a lot in women, that are hyperthyroid as well, not hypo, but those who have a hyperthyroid, so Graves' disease, where their thyroid is overreacting, um, over functioning in perimenopause and menopause, because that happens,
Wow.
and they will have that sleep disturbance. The cortisol will increase through the night. And they know, like they'll say, I could get up in the middle of the night and start washing my floors, or I could
Yeah, that
do,
was me last night. I just wanted to get up and clean. I mean, I dozed off, but I just wanted to get up and clean. It was hilarious. I'm like, no.
that was your cortisol spike there.
Yeah.
You've got a hormonal spike at that 3 a.m., which we've probably touched on last
Mm.
time or the previous time. And then you've got the cortisol. So the cortisol is that, oh, I could get up and start, finishing my PhD right now. And the other one is, I'm a bit dozy and dopey. That's more when you're hormonal, when your hormones, the progesterone or the estrogen's playing a part in that.
Awesome. Oh my God. Well, I think I can sense another episode of just sleep hygiene. I think that's a big one.
Oh,
And
yeah,
especially when it comes to boundaries and things like that with kids and husbands and television and yourself, not to mention all the other sleep hygiene things that come on. So
absolutely. Yeah. Like,
it's amazing.
how that is an important, just for not only reducing inflammation, but for cognitive repair, to
Mm,
reduce dementia.
mm,
Like, who would think?
I
Um,
know.
but also turning some of those oncogenes on, like, um, breast cancer risk and other cancer risk. Like you'd be surprised. But that would be a great episode.
Yeah, I mean, even for beauty, I say to the kids, I need to get my beauty sleep. I literally, because I notice I look a lot older if I don't have that proper sleep hygiene. So thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. Tell me, what are you up to now? What's the latest?
The latest for me is, look, working away on the functional medicine program, doing a few other sort of talks, live talks. I've done a couple overseas, talked about metabolic syndrome, diabetes for them, and talked a little bit, obviously, about perimenopause and menopause. At the moment, organising a perimenopause and menopause expo, in Victoria. So that's going to take place at the end of November this year. So that's quite exciting, trying to get together a few, not a few, quite a few, a lineup of good quality, health and wellness invested people who are on the
Perfect.
same page as me. So that's me just doing a lot of work, just trying to get out there and, sort of recruit as many people in that field as I've come across. So yeah, doing that. But yeah, just really, getting out there and just spreading the word to women about how to embrace and reclaim themselves in perimenopause and in menopause, because I think there are a lot of women that are lost, out there in the world of the cyberspace world of, what do I do? How do I look after myself? And feeling that they're old and decrepit, and it's not the end,
No,
it's the beginning.
it is. It is. It's to me, it's a second chance. It really is. And yeah, you can absolutely do it. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you again for your time. You're amazing.
Thanks, Bianca. Love you lots.
You too, babe.